Hey, it's Tom Kradza, and today we're going to talk about how to find cash flow investment properties in the Greater Toronto Area. Come with me. Okay, so we turned our training room into a quasi little studio here with some lights, and we're at our whiteboard in our training room because I want to talk to you about how to find cash flowing investment properties in the Greater Toronto Area. Probably our number one request is how to find cash flowing investment properties in Toronto. And there's a bunch of different answers for that. So I'm going to let me draw kind of Lake Ontario here. You're going to have to bear with me. That's my Lake Ontario. This is Toronto here. And in Toronto proper, some of the property prices that we're looking at range from anything like $780,000 to find $780,000 for a 3-bedroom semi-detached house or fully detached house around the Danforth and Pape area. Maybe by up here, so that's Danforth and Pape, a little bit on the east side of the core, just a little bit on the north side of Toronto, by York University. You can get a semi-detached house up there, right near the York University campus for about $650,000. So maybe about $650,000 up here. And then in Toronto, kind of in the core of Toronto, prices will just kind of go up from there. And those kind of properties will only produce cash flow from our finding unless by putting a lot of money down. So if you put a lot of money down, if you buy this house at Danforth and Pape and you put 50% down on the house, sure, you can make it cash flow. Even then it's going to make it tough to cash flow. Homes like that in Toronto, we're going to rent out for about $2,000 plus utilities, roughly something like that. So when we look for cash flowing real estate in the Greater Toronto Area, we generally emphasize on the greater part of the Greater Toronto Area, and I want to show you why. If you're not familiar with the Toronto area, here's why. So just north of Toronto, we have so if this is Toronto right here, just north of Toronto, we have Barrie, Ontario. On the east side of Toronto, we have places like Ajax and Whitby, Ontario. Way over here, we have the gem of the city from an investment point of view, Hamilton, Ontario. And then way over here we'll have like Brantford, Ontario. Up here we'll have Kitchener and in Cambridge, and up around here we'll have Guelph, Ontario. And the reason as investors that we're pulled outside of the core of Toronto is because to create cash flow with your investments, check out the price differences. In Ajax, Ontario, or Barrie, Ontario, or Hamilton, Ontario, you can find the same house that you would pay for about $780,000 around the Danforth and Pape area in Toronto. You can buy that house for about $280,000 to $300,000. So you can buy that house that we were spending $780,000 for here for about $500,000 less. And as an investor, here's the next thing that we like to think about. Rent here, remember I mentioned rent here is about $2,000 a month, $2,000 plus utilities. You rent out these houses that you're buying for $280,000 to $300,000, so about $500,000 less. You rent them out for roughly the same. You can rent them out for about $1,800 plus utilities. So now we're spending $500,000 less. And instead of getting rent for $2,000, we're getting rent for about $1,800. And at $1,800, when we put 20% down on these properties, we can make these properties cash flow. When we take into account our mortgage payment, so as investors, we're going to be responsible for mortgage payment. We're going to be paying insurance on the property, and we're going to be paying taxes on the property. Put that up there. Taxes on the property. So that's what we're going to be responsible for. And at $1,800 with about 20% down, we can make that cash flow. So that's why, I mean, I'm born in Toronto, I'm a huge fan of Toronto, but when the prices are $780,000 for a semi-detached or a fully detached home, it makes it really difficult to make that property cash flow. But if I just pull myself out of Toronto a little bit in any of these markets are really attractive to me as the investor. The population base is increasing, it gets the jobs of Toronto. These are basically commuter cities in Toronto. Transportation routes are growing from these areas back into Toronto. Hamilton's getting GO train stations in downtown. Barrie has the GO train, so does Ajax. Highway access into these cities as well. These are basically becoming some of the sleeper communities of Toronto and gets the benefit of the Greater Toronto Area's economic impact. So income levels are good, population growth is good, and something else I think that we never discuss as maybe residents of this area, we get about anywhere from 80 to 96,000 immigrants into this area of the country every year. So that means for the last 5 years, if I'm doing my math right, we have about 400,000 new people that have come into this greater Toronto area. It's increasing demand for real estate and as a benefit to me. So if I can buy properties for $500,000 less, I can make them cash flow just as straight rent, and then maybe I'll use different strategies on them. I can increase my cash flow on those properties by buying close to a university and maybe making it a student rental property. Or if the opportunity is right and the tenant is right and the property is right, I can maybe do a rent to own, charge a little bit higher rent, get an option fee up front so I can get more cash flow from the property that way. So to find cash flow investment real estate in Toronto right now, unless you're willing to put a lot of money down, whether it's a single family, a duplex, or a triplex, it's rather difficult. We find it much more beneficial to come a little bit out of the city, which can be a little bit of a pain, right? Especially if you live right in Toronto, you got to travel to some of your investment properties. But for $500,000 less, there's a whole bunch of reasons why I'd rather pay $500,000 less for the property. My rent out here is going to be $1,800 versus $2,000 here. So that means I'm getting roughly 10% less in rent, but I'm paying $500,000 less for the property. So in Toronto, if you're focusing all your efforts on looking for cash flowing investments inside the city of Toronto, it may be wise and it may be time to start pulling yourself out of Toronto and looking at some of these great cities that have great income levels, great population growth, and different transportation routes that are benefiting the growth of these cities. So hopefully that kind of changes your thinking a little bit on when you're looking for cash flow investments. Until next time, your life, your terms.